It is election season almost everywhere around the globe. The UK has just elected a new Labour government. Here in Canada, the Conservatives have won the long-held Liberal riding of Toronto-St. Paul's. And south of the border, the presidential election is in full force. And while elections have impacts on the policies of a country, those policies ultimately impact the economy and markets more generally. Joining us now to discuss how elections disrupt markets is Brendan Caldwell, Director at Caldwell Securities Ltd. Brendan, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you. Good to be here.
And how do you foresee the recent election results influencing the overall economic climate in the coming months?
Well, it'll be interesting to see. I think politicians do like to believe, and I think people in general do like to believe, that politics is more important than perhaps it actually is. Yes, over a long period of time, bad politics does make for bad government, which makes for bad economics and a bad market. That's true. But that's more the tone and tenor. I think that's the bigger question, maybe for another day, is about the tone and tenor of politics and whether we're seeing a general decline in the tone. But you can always look back on the past and say it was worse. With a recent St. Paul's election that you referred to, we'll see. I would be unsurprised if our prime minister were to announce his resignation. I know he says that he is committed to the long term. It's going to make him work twice as hard. But it does sound and feel a bit like when he was supportive of his finance minister and his justice minister, and he's 100% behind them, only to have them be gone within the week. So hopefully that's not the case. But if it is, then we'll see what happens there. In the UK, it was kind of inevitable that the change needed to happen after a long period of time of conservative government, and not good conservative government, not even traditional conservative government. Change had to happen. France, and we'll have to see what happens in the US. But I think that there is probably more drama, more smoke than there's actual fire in terms of substance to the economy, but we can unpack that.
Are there specific sectors or industries that tend to be most affected by election results?
Well, the first thing that it's probably the interest rates are the biggest determining factor. So the industries that are affected most by that tend to be financial services. I think that in the short term, elections and even bigger political events, even catastrophic events like 9/11, have very short-term impacts on markets. The analysts will tell you that the final year of a U.S. presidency tends to be a really good year for markets because the government's out there spending and stimulating the economy, and the first year of a U.S. presidency tends to be weakest. But those are very broad statements. So I don't think that there is a particular industry that I think if you're in the electric vehicle industry in Canada, you might want to keep the present government in power a little longer. The energy business in Canada probably does better under a Western premier, probably. So there are a few things, but I think those will probably be the most affected.
From a global standpoint, what implications might these election results have on international trade and investment flows?
Well, that's a tricky one. Canada has always done better when our head of government and the Americans' head of government, who's also their head of state, the president, get on. So we got the free trade agreement done, whichever people might say about it, because Mulroney and Reagan liked each other, and it worked. Clinton and Chrétien seemed to get on well. Trump and Trudeau, not so much. So I do not think it'll be a good scenario for Canada. And the U.S. is our biggest trading partner by some vast multiple. I think that will be an issue. Former President Trump does have a very mercantilist, very protectionist way of looking at the world, very America first. I mean, the hat says it all, making America great again. I can see why in the short term that would be good for America, but longer term, it's not going to be helpful for the world. The whole world's got richer based on globalization, based on people using the relative and absolute efficiencies in various areas to prop each other's economies up and to trade where it makes some sense to do so. I would not like to see the end of that, although I think we've already seen it in significant decline over the last few years.
Brendan, thank you so much.
Thank you.